Is Jerome Powell on the way out? And if so, what does that mean for your investments? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Before we do get into it, please make sure to like the video and also subscribe to the YouTube. Really appreciate your support. I'm also going to put a QR code down below for a Bitcoin tip. So if you want to support the channel, feel free to leave me a little tip. Now let's get into it. So we have been seeing news that Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve, may be resigning, or that President Trump is looking to fire Jerome Powell. And this really all started last Friday, July 11th, when Bill Pulte, the chairman of the U.S. Federal Housing Finance Agency, posted a statement saying that he thinks Jerome Powell is looking to resign. So let's go ahead and take a look at that statement. Here is the direct quote from Bill Pulte. "I'm encouraged by reports that Jerome Powell is considering resigning. I think that this will be the right direction for America and the economy will boom." Ever since we got this statement, the buzz and the drama has continued to grow. And this week, I've seen multiple reports that the Trump administration is actively looking to replace Jerome Powell. However, I also saw a quote from Trump saying that he is not looking to do this. And then half an hour ago on X, I saw Scott Bessent basically say that they are going through a formal process looking to replace him. So it's very difficult to know what is actually going on here. I checked on Polymarket and it looks like the betting markets are betting that Trump isn't going to fire Jerome Powell this year. According to Polymarket, there is an 18% probability of that happening. And I think that the reason why the probability is so low is because this is a difficult thing to do. We have never seen a president fire the chair of the Federal Reserve in the entire history of the Federal Reserve. In order for the president to fire the chair of the Federal Reserve, there has to be some sort of misconduct or neglect of duty. It can't just be a disagreement on policy. And that seems like the main issue here. Trump wants the federal funds rate to be lowered a lot, and Jerome Powell doesn't want to do that. So I do think it's going to be difficult for Trump to fire Jerome Powell, but what he can do is make Jerome Powell feel very uncomfortable and kind of try to push him out and force him to resign. And if, Jerome Powell feels like he's being pushed very hard, he doesn't feel welcome, maybe he will decide to do that. It looks like Jerome Powell's term as Fed chair will end on May 15th of 2026. So even if we don't see Powell head out in the next couple of months here, he will be heading out soon. And with that, someone new is going to step in that's going to be appointed by Trump. And it looks like Trump will probably get his lower federal funds rate if that's what he wants. Let's go ahead and take a look at the process of nominating a new Fed chair. So the new Fed chair will be nominated by the president. So Trump is going to pick someone who aligns with his views. He's probably going to pick someone that's going to be willing to lower the federal funds rate. Once he does nominate someone, the Senate basically confirms that person with a vote, and then the new Fed chair will serve a 4-year term. So although the Federal Reserve and the Fed chair, they're supposed to be this separate entity, as we can see from the hiring process, the president is the one who gets to nominate the Fed chair. So it looks like, that's pretty tied in with the U.S. government, right? If the president is going to nominate someone that aligns with his views and is going to do all the things he wants when it comes to monetary policy, then these two entities aren't really that separate, right? They're pretty intertwined. So I would expect the next person to hop in there is going to do what Trump wants him to do. We've heard rumors that Scott Bessent could potentially be the next Fed chair, but who knows? We will see who Trump picks. Now, why isn't Trump a big fan of Jerome Powell? It's because Trump wants the federal funds rate lowered, and Jerome Powell isn't doing that. We recently saw Trump come out and call for a 300 basis point cut to the federal funds rate, and that would be a huge cut. I believe the federal funds rate is currently around 4.5%, and Jerome Powell is not going to do that. Why isn't he going to do that? Because it's going to lead to more inflation. We actually just got some of the inflation numbers with the CPI and PPI data, so let's go ahead and take a look at those. As we can see for the CPI, in June, we saw a 0.3% increase for the CPI inflation, and that is the third straight month of an increase. And it looks like year over year, we're looking at 2.7% inflation on the CPI. If we look at the PPI, we were actually flat in June. We saw the PPI rise in May, and it was actually down in April. And I believe that the PPI year over year inflation is 2.3%. So inflation has been sticky, and it makes sense that Jerome Powell doesn't want to cut the federal funds rate a ton because this is going to spark up more inflation. You pair that with quantitative easing that's going to happen over the next year, and that might be a scenario that the government doesn't want to let out of the bag. We also know that Jerome Powell and others believe that these tariffs are going to lead to price increases, right? With this tax on imports, it's going to lead to prices going higher, and I kind of agree with that. We'll see what the extent of these tariffs are, but this is another reason why Jerome Powell doesn't want to lower the federal funds rate, because you pair all these things together, the lower federal funds rate, the QE, the tariffs, it's going to lead to much higher prices. If we do see the federal funds rate lowered significantly, it's going to mean that borrowing money is going to become cheaper for the banks, right? That's what this federal funds rate is. It's this overnight lending rate for these banking institutions. And with that, we are going to see more inflation. And as inflation heads up higher, that's actually going to mean higher interest rates for the whole economy, because people who are lending money, they're going to want an interest rate that is at the inflation rate or higher, right? If they are charging an interest rate that is lower than the inflation rate, then they are losing in real terms. So I think it's going to be difficult for the Fed and the government to really lower the federal funds rate too much, because I think it could lead to them losing control of the interest rate environment and inflation. If Trump does want a lower federal funds rate, he can have it, because Jerome Powell is going to be heading out and he can put someone in there who's going to do it. But I think that this might be a mistake, and it's going to lead to more inflation. And that inflation is going to push people into hard assets like Bitcoin, like gold. It'll probably push people into other assets like stocks as well. But I just think that this could be a bad scenario for the government if you have a lower federal funds rate, if you're needing to do QE because you're not seeing enough demand for treasury bonds. So you're having the government basically come in and print money and buy those bonds. I mean, this could be an inflationary cocktail. So this is just another reason for you to get in on Bitcoin, because as we go through this period of monetary debasement, of dollar inflation, I think that Bitcoin is going to be the best beneficiary. All this drama with Jerome Powell at the end of the day is just another reason to buy Bitcoin. This is not financial advice, but personally, I think that's the best place to be. That's going to wrap it up for this one. If you did not like and subscribe, please make sure to do that now. Thanks for watching. I'll be back soon.